Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Food Truck 101 from beginner to winner. I am your host, Lauren Bell. I'm the co-owner of Double Trouble Philly Cheesesteak food truck here, and I co-own that business with my twin sister, Lori, and her husband, Keith. So welcome. We've been in business for 2+ years now. Joining us tonight and every Monday night is our author extraordinaire, I call him, the creator and founder of this food truck training group, which today has over 19,000 members and growing daily. Bill Moore has written awesome, not only Food Truck 101, but he's written other books such as Putting the Cart Before the Dog or Taking It to the Streets. Bill brings 44 years of experience and insight from the food industry right here into our own living rooms. He and his wife, Melissa, spends countless hours maintaining the integrity and the professionalism of this group. He has managed large chain restaurants, hot dog carts, food trucks, etc. Bill is definitely dedicated to the growth and success of our businesses. I personally, honestly, do not know where I would be right now without him. Please help me welcome to the platform no other than the man with the plan, Mr. Bill Moore.
I swear those get longer and longer every week.
No, it's a minute. It was a minute like in 30 seconds.
Oh, whatever.
Thank you, Bill, for all you do.
Thank you.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. There's just nothing for me to say. I'm very proud of the group and what we've been able to accomplish so far. I write the books because I want people to understand the business. I want them to be just as successful as they possibly can. You know, I'm writing a follow-up book to 101. I can't remember how many pages. I was talking to Melissa earlier about how many pages I've written so far. I remember it was around 8,000 words. So it's about 10% of where I need to be as far as the next book goes. So what we're going to do is once we come out of this book club, we're going to go straight into that one. And that particular book, there is no other book like it on Amazon. Every book that you're going to read is how to start, how to start, how to start. There's no book that's going to teach you what to do after you've gotten started. Because any of you guys that have been doing this any length of time are probably running into some problems. And you're thinking about, well, how can I make more money? How can I do this better? And that's what that book's going to be about. It's going to be taking you from worrying about how to figure out a food cost and getting all your licenses and all those things into, let's make a business. Let's make a complete business that's going to end up being something you could actually sell or leave to your children so that it runs itself. And that all you guys can take a vacation and the business still runs. Because that's what's important. Because right now, most of you guys have only created a job. So that's why I'm writing the second book. So we're not just working a job, we're working our businesses. All right, so let's let Lauren get us started here. And I got some slides that I'm going to do. Hopefully you guys can all see that. So Lauren, if you go ahead and kick it off.
All right. So I have a food dream. We all know that great success stories all start with a dream. But then after you dream, you got to put some work in, right? So many of you who, if I ask you, why do you want to start a food truck business or why you want to be an entrepreneur, why a street vending business, we would probably get reasons like, my food is the best, or everybody wants my recipe, right? Or something like, I've been cooking since I was 3, or I want to be my own boss. Maybe you just got laid off. Nevertheless, whatever the reason is, Bill points out in this chapter that short-term problems create high motivation for change. However, if there's little industry knowledge or little business experience and knowledge, success can be as hard as it is to find a needle in a haystack. So it takes a systematic approach, and you really need to know why. Why are you here? Why food? Why even start a business? So that's what we're going to jump into now. Part of my why was one, I wanted to be a household name. Of course, I wanted to work for myself. So some of those same reasons Bill lists in the chapter were some of the same ones you heard from me. You know, we made cheesesteaks all the time. We did it for fun. Our friends thought it was great. And we wanted to take it on the road. We wanted to do something with it. Little did we know, just getting on the truck and making our food, our cheesesteaks, which is not enough to sustain or to build. There had to be more. And so that's what we want to kick this chapter off with, is why. So that's kind of part of my why. And I want to ask a few of you, what is your why? Just maybe a couple of people, just raise your hand and just take 30 seconds and tell us why. Why now? Why this business? Why this food? Why? Share, anyone.
While people are figuring out how to raise their hand, I'll kind of share my why. When I very first got into this business, I was bored in what I was doing in college, and I wanted to do something where I could actually interact with people. And it just made sense to me when I started working at a restaurant. It's like, oh, this is fun. I never once ever thought that the work I did was difficult or hard. And so the point when I had the opportunity to do a trailer, a food trailer, do the hot dog trailer that I did, it just was fun. And I just can't imagine not having fun while you're at work. My very first goal, my very first why in that trailer, and then I'll let James tell us his, and a couple other people have their hands up as well. It's awesome. I wanted to buy a stereo. If you guys can remember, maybe your parents, some of you guys are really young, but if you can remember your parents talking about the big stereos where the speakers were like 5 feet tall, that's what I wanted. And there was one at Sears that was $457. And I didn't have $457, but I knew that if I took my hot dog cart or my hot dog trailer out, I could make that in a couple of weekends. So that was my first why, to buy that stereo. And then as I got into the business, my whys became, I'm going to pay for a trip to Disney World. I'm going to pay for a cruise. I'm going to pay for something. I always had some goal in mind. And that's what the why is. What is your end goal? Because no one gets into business just to make a hot dog or a Philly cheesesteak. They get into it for the things that making the hot dog and the Philly cheesesteak will get them. So let's talk first to James, because his hand was up first, I believe. So if you unmute yourself and you can share with us, please.
How's it going?
Good, good.
So I'm here with my 10-year-old daughter, and we're looking to do this together. So I'm semi-retired right now, and we cook together all the time, and we thought this would be a good way to good fellowship together with her, and then leave her something after I get out of the workforce completely.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I believe a couple of weeks ago, I shared stories about some of my kids would come into the different restaurants and food trucks and stuff and help. I had one she was 4 years old, and I would have her seat the dining room, and people just loved it because she knew exactly what to say and tell them how to, your server will be right with you. And she was only 4 years old. She'd take the menus, and the menus are almost bigger than her, and people just loved it. So you're doing awesome things when you bring your children in and teach them all about business and how to handle people. That's fantastic. Melina is next. So tell us your why.
Okay, I have 3 whys. My food truck is a means to a diner.
Okay.
But I started because I have a passion for hospitality, and I've worked for so many people over the course of my lifetime, I started work at 14 years old, but in the restaurant industry, 17 years old, and I'm 45 now. I've worked for some pretty hectic, crazy, toxic places, and I just want to provide people a fair and enjoyable place to work.
That's great. I love the things that you're saying, because that is so common, unfortunately, in our industry, is people have a lot of toxic bosses. I'm sure some people probably thought I was, because I'm a very stickler for the rules, but I also was considered very fair too sometimes. Let's see. Any more comments, Melina, before I move on? Nope. All right. Joanne, let's hear your thoughts.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Joe.
Why did I get into this business? Oh, many reasons. First, I'm a fully retired corrections officer, and that was a 21-year career in a negative environment. I went from that to driving school buses, and that was positive and negative, but it got me to be able to talk to more people. I love talking to people. Then I drove tractor trailers, and it made me think that there's not a lot of places for people that drive tractor trailers to really stop and eat when they're inside a town. And then I drove transit buses locally. And again, not a lot of places that they can pick up something quick and nice and be in a nice environment. And like I said, I love talking to people. I'm very social. I've had this dream of having a food truck many, many years ago when I was married, and I was put down for it. So now that I'm no longer married to that person, I am involved with somebody that is very emotionally supportive. And we were talking about it a couple of years ago, and she said, why not do it? You're very sociable. You love cooking. You love serving people. And where you're going to get set up, it's your first love, your first career in law enforcement. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. We got another one, and I know it's not Antonio, but Antonio's cell phone or
Donnie.
Yeah,
Hey,
I'm Donnie. I'm Donnie, and that's my wife Lisa. And we've been I'm retired about 2 years now, and I was a union carpenter, among many other things I've done in my life. But me and my wife, we always she's a school teacher. We work religiously. We have strong work ethic. We have 5 kids that we raised, and we always thought about a business. Like we always, like for the last 10, 15 years, we wanted to open a business. We 1,000 different ideas. We're always examining everywhere I go to a business aspect, always thinking, what business. I didn't want to, my wife's starting a business. I'm going to help her. And we didn't just want to jump into something blind. So 15 years later, we got together and both agreed that we would love to start a food truck business. My wife doesn't eat food trucks a lot. Me, I cannot pass a food truck or a cart without eating it. I just always had a thing for that. I have to eat off a food truck or a cart or a hot dog wagon. And, we have 5 kids, tons of nieces and nephews and sisters-in-laws and brother-in-laws and 5 uncles. And me and my wife, Lisa, it's always been our passion. We cook everywhere we go. 10 pounds of chicken cutlets, 8 pounds of meatballs, 3 pounds of, that's all we do. You come to our house, you got to eat. It's intimidating. People know wherever we are, we stuff food down your throat. And we just think our small community, which is in Long Island, Island Trees, there's really no food trucks. And we want to build a business for our family, not just us. And I want a challenge too. Like I've always worked so hard, and every detail I paid attention to when I did my job, and I'm missing this in my life now that I'm retired. So like I'm up for the challenge and the hard work, and I'm definitely into hopefully having something successfully and reaping the benefits financially.
There you go. Well, we're going to help you get successful. That's what the book's about. That's what the group's about. I've got one chat. It's from Jody Spices and Teas, and she says that she's doing this to honor her dad's memory and to celebrate his lifetime. And
Hey.
that's
Hey, Bill.
hey,
Hey.
I can't see
Well,
who's talking. Sorry.
It's okay. I didn't have time to do my makeup, so.
Oh, it's okay. I didn't do mine either, so we're good.
Yeah, well, I've been in the fashion and the cosmetics and the hair industry for years, and with COVID happened, it kind of turned me off of all of that, And we lost my dad due to COVID, And I went through a pretty dark space, right? Getting over my dad. And dad was a big influence on us with food. He grew up in Toronto, and like so many international foods there. So curries and Jamaican food and like Jewish food. It's just beautiful food. And so he'd bring it home, or he'd take us to markets and we'd eat that. And so during COVID and before that, I got married to my husband, and every time I made a food that he liked, he said, write it down. So I wrote it all down, and I ended up almost with a cookbook now.
There you go.
And then I decided I kind of wouldn't mind doing like a food truck, but with health reasons, I thought I'm just going to start with teas and spices, you know, like a product line. But lately I'm starting to feel like I could do like maybe start with a tent and go from there, and start with food too. And then I can show my spices and my teas, but also serve food at the same time. Something not too strenuous, like you guys that do the barbecue, that takes a lot of guts. But I'd really like to do maybe breakfast or something, or, you know, and when I get some more courage, I'll get into my lasagnas and my, you know, with the more equipment that you need for that. And, you know, just start small and go slow and just learn all I can and get the momentum going, and start adding meals and different kinds of options later. But yeah, so I'm getting excited.
Good. You should. All right. One thing before we move on into the rest of the discussion, I want you guys to think about your why, because there's going to be tough days ahead. It's not going to be smooth sailing from here on out. If you guys remember Gilligan's Island, pretty much every time Gilligan said it was going to be smooth sailing, that's when the storm hit. There's going to be a storm hit. Your why is what's going to propel you through that storm. It's be your reminder of, yeah, I'm doing this because I'm going to honor my dad's memory. I'm doing it for the stereo that I want. I'm doing it because everyone's told me I'm an awesome cook. I am an awesome cook. You're going to own that, and you're going to make it work. The why helps you to get through the tough times. That's why I wanted everyone to talk about it in this discussion, but it's also why I wanted everyone to write it down. That's a part of the workbook. The why is your motivation. And as you can see, everybody's got a different why, and that's great, because it only has to be meaningful to you. Okay, Lauren, let's move on.
All right. Well, we're going to start those slides, but so let's go ahead and start your slides, because it'll take us systematically. And then if we have questions or comments, we'll chime in. So let's go.
All right. So we're going to go with, these are the pro tips. These are all listed in the book. And Melissa was just talking to me. Anyway, all these pro tips are they're listed in the book, and they're in every chapter. These are really my thoughts on the particular subject matter that we're talking about. This first one is when you're doing your research, you only want to go to official state, county, and city websites. And sometimes it's hard to tell, because when you type in how to start a food truck, for instance, let me let a couple of people in. When you type in how to start a food truck, you'll get all kinds of random ads, basically, and you can't really tell whether it's the city or the state website, or if it's somebody trying to rip you off. So you got to be super careful. That's why I put up there to look at how it ends. Should be a .org or a .edu or a .state. That lets you know that you're probably on the right track as far as getting the official information. So definitely ignore the advertisements, because they will take you down a rabbit hole of, well, you need this and you need this and you need this, but they're trying to sell you something, and you may not need everything they're trying to sell. I need to move my camera set around so I can actually see what I wrote. Okay, the next pro tip says, if you're already struggling financially, and this is pertaining to when you come across some of the research, your city might say you can't open your business after 9 o'clock at night. And if you're in an area, say a beach area, where there's lots of bars and that kind of thing, not being able to be open after 9 o'clock is going to hurt you, because most of the bars only start getting rocking until 10 o'clock. And that's when they want to get food so they can go back and drink some more. There's a couple of beach towns, for instance, that actually say that you cannot open past 9 o'clock. So this is pertaining to if you run across rules or regulations that are impacting your business potential, it may be smarter for you just to look at the next town over. Their rules may not be as stringent. So that way you can get started, and then we can work on changing the rules in your hometown, because there are ways to do that as well.
Mhm.
Next tip was to focus only on your state's information. And again, from official government websites. That is just important enough that I had to say it 2 times. And sorry, I was just letting a couple more folks in. The next tip is when it comes to the health department, it is better for you to ask too many questions than not enough. Don't feel like the health department is going to get upset with you because you're asking questions. They are there to be your resource. They're government workers, and that's their job. Their task is to help keep the public safe. Part of keeping the public safe is to educate or help to educate people when they don't understand the rules and regulations as they pertain to a food truck or a hot dog cart or a trailer. So don't be afraid to ask too many questions. In the chapter, I list a whole bunch of questions. And one of the comments that I get most frequently is that I list a lot of things that people never really considered. These are all things you need to think about, and then hopefully it focuses you in on the kind of questions that need to be asked when you are able to talk to your health department. So write down all the questions, definitely write down the answers, because you need to learn. The next one, and this is a super important one, I recommend this no matter what. Whether your state requires the certified food manager certificate or not, you want to take it. You're in the food business. It is your responsibility to prepare the food in a way that keeps it wholesome and safe for people to consume. You can't possibly do that if you haven't taken this kind of class and then gotten a certification in it, because it covers everything. It covers more stuff than you'll need in your business, but it also makes you a better business operator because you understand all the details as far as it takes to keep people safe. When I started in this business, Lauren said 44 years, it's actually going on 45 now, because I started in 1977.
I will have to change that.
Yes, we'll have to change that. And we had to add the part that I'm 6'3" too, so people know that I'm tall.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, the thing about the certified food managers, when I started, they didn't have such a thing. That came in over time. The last time that I took it, I was actually thrown into the test because somebody just thought it would be funny to say, oh, can you go do the test? This is one of the Burger King franchises, and my particular certification wasn't the one that Burger King wanted. Burger King only wants ServSafe. ServSafe is a brand. There are 6 other companies that provide a food manager certification. But Burger King, they get a discount from the Restaurant Association, the National Restaurant Association, gives them a discount to make the test available to all the Burger King franchises. So it doesn't cost them as much as it does you or I when we go to buy the test.
Right.
So anyway, they sat me down and said, here, take the test. We need to have your certification updated. So I took the test with no preparation at all, and I got a 96. It's not a difficult test if you're familiar with the terminology. What bothers me is when people that are new to the business come in and ask, how hard is the test? How hard is any test? If you study for it, it's super easy. If you're not familiar with the material, it's super hard. But when someone says it's just common sense, don't fall for that. It's not common sense, because there are so many different specific bacterial names that are associated with different kinds of foods. And I'm sorry, that ain't common sense. I was never once playing out in the streets and we started talking about botulism and how you can get botulism. It's just one of those things you don't know. It's not common sense. It's not street knowledge. So don't fall for that when somebody says it. I usually try to correct them when I see it on the different forums, because it's not common sense. But I recommend, if your state requires it, you take it. If your state doesn't require it, you take it anyway, because your business is too valuable to you for you not to be educated to make sure that you're serving safe food. All righty. The last two, before we'll be able to do some questions and answers and all that. If something sounds off, and here I'm referring to when you're talking to a health inspector or the health department, if something sounds off, you can ask for two things. There's either going to be an interpretation memo or an interpretation manual, or there's going to be a guidance memo or a guidance manual. Whenever the state adopts rules and regulations that they put in force for any food service, they're going to explain why they have that particular rule or regulation. And usually they'll either specifically say this is why we're doing it, or they'll give you a link in the official rule that takes you back to some other document. It could be the federal level document. It could be some research paper that a college has done, but it's going to give you exactly what they meant by whatever they've written in that rule. The reason that these are put out is to keep all the inspectors on the same page, because we all know that when we go to school, especially to learn something, people are very gung-ho when they get out of school because they've been taught all this information and they want to do it exactly right. But then as they keep doing it, they tend to focus on things that they really care about. It becomes their pet peeves.
Mhm.
And those pet peeves may not be exactly what the government or the Congress or whoever wrote the rules and regulations wanted to happen. So there are opportunities for you to debate the health inspector when they say something that's just really weird, and we see that all the time. You don't want to do what most people recommend, just demand he show you where it is. That's going to get you exactly nowhere, because now you're adversarial. And now the person has to stub up and prove that they're right, or just say, do what I say and shut up. What you want to do is engage them and, hey, I don't understand what you mean. Can you explain this to me a little bit better? How about we get the interpretation memo, or how about we get the guidance memo so I can understand what's being told to me? You're not saying you're an idiot for saying this rule wrong. You're not forcing them to prove that they're right. You're saying, hey, teach me this so I can understand the way you understand. Now you fed their ego, but they're going to get to the point of what the problem might be, and they might actually educate themselves. And then they're able to say, well, this is how it reads, and this is what I meant to say. But as soon as you become an adversary, they remember that. So
That's
for clarification.
That's exactly right, Bill. I was going to mention that too. I have wrote it down here that when you, one of the easiest approaches to the health department is to go on the official sites and print the rules, print the checklist first. Sometime before you even call them, print it, and then read over the rules and the checklist and the requirements. And then when you call them, you could ask your specific questions to make sure that you're in line. Bill, like Bill said, sometimes you'll get some information that's way far off. And so what you need to do, like Bill said, just ask, say, that's not how I understand this particular rule. Can you help me understand it or clarify it? Like he said, your health inspectors really are your best friends. People, you will meet people in this group and other groups and life period along this journey who has had some really horrific ordeals with health inspectors because sometimes you just approach things wrong. So look at that information. They really try to be as cut and dry. And every health department that I've ever talked to, and in my county, I've talked to 5 here just locally, they've all been extremely helpful in making sure that we understood what was going to be required in our local and city in our little areas. So please, if you have not done that, go to the official sites, print out those rules and regs, highlight what you do understand, what you don't understand, circle it, and get those clarified before you get into spending money for your permits, and then realizing that there are some things in the requirements that you just can't meet or that you're not willing to meet. When people get to this stage sometime in the game, they realize maybe this is not for me this way. Maybe I need to tweak it a little bit. Your licenses and inspections, we're already talking, and for the city of Houston, over $1,000. So you don't want to go into that, you're having a truck already, not knowing any of the rules, and then get there to be told by the health inspectors that you don't meet the requirements, and here you wasted all this time and money. So anyway, I just wanted to reiterate that because I've been personally through all of that with different counties, and it can be very horrific. Not to mention, in a 5-mile radius, we carry 5 different permits, and the rules, some of the rules are very different. So for the most part, the rules are pretty much bundled, but every state or city requires something that the other one does not. Yeah. And so you need to know that going through the doors. So.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up. You being in that small of an area, you have potential for a whole bunch of different licenses. And it's like that, unfortunately, in a lot of different states. So that brings into the next pro tip that I've got. You can get a temporary permit, and they're usually easier to get, which really bothers me as somebody that does this all the time. The threshold for what you have to do is way lower than someone's getting an annual permit. And it makes me very skeptical when I go up to an event and see someone that I know only has a temporary permit, because they're not being held to the same standard as somebody that has an annual permit. But if that's a way for you to get your business going and generate income, then by all means, look into the temporary permits. That's also a way that people that go from state to state, they do just a temporary permit when they move from, Florida to Georgia and do just the Georgia State Fair, for instance. That's how they're able to do it. One of the big differences about temporary permits is how you have to handle the water, for instance, and the disposing of the water. The rules are usually a little bit less in most cases. So I know some people have been writing some comments, and we'll get to those when we get into the question and answer section. So by all means, keep writing your comments. One thing that I want to point out, and I'm glad that Lauren brought this up, the number of different health departments and how helpful they can be. I've worked in Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Florida, I didn't already say Florida, and the Virgin Islands. So I've had a lot of different experiences with a lot of different states, as well as a lot of different cities. I've worked in 39 different restaurants or different cities with all their different health department rules and regulations. And I have yet to meet a health department inspector that is rude or a know-it-all. I've met a couple that I didn't much care for, but they weren't wrong in what they did. They were just kind of abrasive personalities, but they did enforce the rules the way they were meant to be enforced. The only time I've ever met anybody that was unprofessional was in the Virgin Islands. If you guys have never had an opportunity to visit them, by all means visit them, but don't live there. The Virgin Islands are great for tourists, but they're not great for people that live there. The health inspector there never, ever inspected my restaurant. And I saw him 4 times when I was there. But every time he came in, he expected me to give him something. One time he was doing a party that he invited me to, thankfully. And he said, and all you got to do is give me a case of potatoes, because I was working at Wendy's at the time and we did bake potatoes back then. And he wanted a case of potatoes. As long as I gave him a case of potatoes, he left me alone. And he went on to tell me that one of the other restaurants down the road gave him a ham. That's what he was cooking for Thanksgiving. So he got his entire party taken care of by all the different people that he was supposed to be inspecting. So he was the only unprofessional one I've ever dealt with. But everybody else in all those different states was pretty good. Some of them were very friendly, some of them weren't. All right, now I've got the homework listed here. Now, if you've got the workbook, this is part of the workbook. If you didn't choose to buy the workbook, that's okay. I'm going to post this information as a text file so that everyone can see all the different homework. These are things that you want to have out of the way before you move forward in the book, because the book is constructed like a textbook. Every chapter kind of builds on the one before it.